Feiyu has just announced their brand new Scorp Mini 3 Pro, which is the gimbal that I have in my hands right now. This is a very special gimbal. It has a payload of up to 2 kilograms, which means you can also use it with a big camera, but you can also use it with a smartphone. It has AI features built in. In this video, we're gonna check it out on the beautiful island of Mallorca. So let's get going. All right, so let's kick things off with the design of the Scorp Mini 3 Pro. What you can see right here, it does not look like your regular gimbal that you're seeing all day long. This has an extra tool or whatever you want to call it. And don't worry, I'm gonna talk about what this does in just a second, but I just wanted to show you one cool thing. You can always detach this part and you still have access to the display that you have at the back of the gimbal. When it comes to the gimbal itself, you do have this knob at the front of the gimbal, and this is a multifunctional wheel that you have. You can use it to pan, tilt, but also roll the gimbal. So in case you're doing a nice movement and you do not want to, tilt up the entire gimbal, you can just use this, with the knob at the front here. At the back of the gimbal, you do have a little control panel, I want to say. You have a joystick that you can also use to pan and tilt into every direction that you have. You can always connect your camera, which means you can start and stop the recording. Also works on smartphones, by the way. And then you have a mode button where you can quickly change between the different modes. And now let's talk about this, part at the back of the gimbal, because I mentioned that, you might not be familiar with something like this. And two things, in my opinion, that this is for. First up, you just have a more steady grip, and when you're just bending your knees and filming the shot, you just have one more connection point. And secondly, in case you want to film in low mode, instead of, fumbling around and going into your knees, all you gotta do is tilt it upside down, bring it downwards, and then you're basically ready to go. So when it comes to the design, I think it's very, a very useful design. All right, so next up I want to talk about the stabilization capabilities of the Scorp Mini 3 Pro. And when it comes to gimbals in general, in the last couple of years, they have gotten to a point where they are crazy good, and almost no matter what you're doing, you're still gonna get good results. And the Feiyu Scorp Mini 3 Pro is absolutely no exception to this. You have seen it throughout the video already, and you are gonna continue to see it throughout the rest of the video. All of the shots that you're seeing in this video were shot using either this setup, or I have switched it over to my iPhone, and it's very steady, very smooth. Also super easy to use. One tip that I can always give to you, no matter the gimbal that you're using, even if you're using the most expensive gimbal out there, when you're shooting, have multiple contact points. We talked about that before, but also make sure that when you're shooting, just make sure that you're going into your knees. Bend your knees and don't just walk around like you would usually do. So if you're shooting, I'm just gonna prepare a shot right now. Instead of just walking like this, just make sure that you bend your knees and go into your knees, because then you're getting rid of that up and down movement and then getting this very, very smooth shot. So if you're doing this, and obviously it also depends a little bit on the lens choice that you have, like, the wider the lens is that you're using, the smoother your shots are gonna appear. So when it comes to the overall stability, Scorp Mini 3 Pro is a very good choice. And by the way, just a very quick thing, in case you want to bring your content creation skills to the next level, your shooting skills, your editing skills, but also your client acquisition skills to go on trips like this. Below that like button, there will be a link to all of our course libraries. We have basically documented everything that we know about creating content, monetizing that, turning that into business. So in case that's interesting for you, make sure you check out the links below that like button. All right, so let me walk you through the different settings and the menu of the Scorp Mini 3 Pro. You can connect the camera directly with the USB-C cable. I did not do this for right now, and usually also I don't tend to do that because I don't need it, but you could do that, and you could also change the aperture, ISO, all of the settings directly here on the gimbal. If we swipe over to the left, we can dial in the strengths of the different motors, because it obviously makes a huge difference if you're shooting with a 2 kilogram setup, which we're not using right now, but this camera here is almost 2 kilograms. So if we would use that part or that setup, then obviously the motors would have to be a lot stronger compared to me using it with a smartphone. And you can dial it in manually, but you can also just, set up the camera, set up the smartphone, put it down on a flat ground, let it auto-tune, and then you will have the perfect settings every time. Next to that, we can dial in the follow speed. This is basically, you know, this knob right here, but also the movements that you're doing. And I personally am always a big fan of just keeping this very slow and very steady. It obviously depends a little bit on the type of scenarios that you're shooting, and I'm gonna show you like a crazy action sports mode. But for the type of videos that I'm shooting most of the time, just keeping it at slow is giving me the best results possible. Coming back to the menu, if we go to the bottom left, we have all of the different modes, which is pan, tilt, follow. So I can pan, but I can also tilt. Next to that, we have the lock mode. So basically I can just, you know, walk around and the gimbal stays in the same position all of the time. Next to that, we have pan follow. So I can pan, but the tilt axis is always gonna stay the same. Then we have FPV, which is for, you know, these crazy shots where you're just shooting a product or whatever, and all of the axes are unlocked. Next to that, we have the crazy sports mode that I just mentioned. This is called FFW, excuse me. There you can see like all of the axes are like super fast, and I don't know if you're shooting, I don't know, a basketball or running around or something like this. This might be a mode for it. I have no use cases for that most of the time. And then we can also dial in a custom mode if we want to. And then last but not least, we can also dial in scenarios. In case we want to shoot a time lapse, we can basically just, you know, create an automated time lapse with this gimbal. So we just set an in point and then also set kind of like keyframes on what's the path that I want the gimbal to go through. You can dial in all of that directly on the gimbal. Super awesome feature. Then we have the auto rotation feature. So in case I want to get my full 360-degree spin, I could also do that right here. Super easy. I can set up a panoramic mode. I can shoot in portrait, selfie mode, and also tracking settings. But we're gonna talk about the whole AI stuff in just a second. All right, so let's talk about the AI tracking. This is, you know, if you are a solo shooter and you want to have some moving shots, as you can see right now, I'm also gonna hit the record button right here. As you can see right now, the gimbal is not following me around, but I can activate this just by doing this little hand gesture right here. You can see the gimbal is now activated. And now I can just move around and just walk into every direction, and I will always be centered in the same spot of the video. And this is a very cool feature because this does not rely on a certain camera. You don't need to use your smartphone or any type of camera. This works just with the built-in AI sensor, so it doesn't matter what camera that you're using. And what's really cool with the Scorp Mini 3 Pro is the distance. You can also activate this with up to, I think, 18 meters. So let's try it around. If I move around like this, you can see I'm always still in the center of the frame. So this is something that is really cool, and I think especially if you are a solo shooter, it's a really cool feature to have. In case you want to change the framing, you can also just go here and do this hand gesture right here. It starts blinking now. I can change my position. I can tell it like, okay, this is the type of framing that I want now. And yeah, very easy to use. I don't like that framing, so I'm just gonna change that for now. Come back here, give that position so you can see it's also very snappy, very easy to use. So in case you are a solo shooter but you still want to move around and have some cool looking shots, very cool feature. All right, so there is one more really cool feature that I have not showed you yet about the Feiyu Scorp Mini 3 Pro, and that is this back part of the gimbal. I've showed you that throughout the video and how you can use it to, you know, have more flexibility and more stability. You can also use it to get some low angle shots, but this back part is also detachable, which means like once you're shooting like this, you know, on the back end here, you have the screen and you can control all of your settings. But if you press this little button right here, you can also just detach it, and then you can use that as a remote control for your gimbal. You can start and stop your recording. You can, you know, pan around, tilt around, whatever that you want, and you just have basically a remote control for your gimbal. So really cool feature to have. Also, like if you're not using that features and you're just using, let's say, the pan, tilt, follow mode, then you can also just use the gimbal like this and make it a little lighter. And also when you're traveling, you know, as we have been traveling back from Mallorca, I've just detached that, put that into my hand luggage, and everything has been working really fine. So very cool feature to have that. Very small, very lightweight, and yeah, overall a very cool gimbal. One of the most important things for me as a content creator is the versatility, and that I need to be able to rely on my gimbal. You know, I need to know that no matter where I am, if I'm shooting at the beach or at, I don't know, minus 10 degrees Celsius, I need to know that my gimbal is working, and I feel very confident that Feiyu Scorp Mini 3 Pro is gonna deliver on that. Also, I need to be able to use different camera setups. You know, I am a professional filmmaker, so sometimes we're shooting, you know, a commercial for BMW DSLW, I obviously need a different setup for that kind of videos. And sometimes I'm just shooting, you know, silly social media videos. So I need to be able to use, you know, a cinema camera. Well, a cinema camera, the R5C is a cinema camera, but generally speaking, I mean just a bigger camera. But I also need to be able to use my smartphone because I do not want to carry 3 different gimbals with me. Also, I need to be able to, you know, to just change settings quickly. I need to be able to balance it quickly and fast and easy. I don't want to fumble around. I don't want to be using any third-party tools, and the Scorp Mini 3 delivers on all of that. Also, when it comes to the settings, I've showed you, you know, most of the settings before already, but also when the horizon is just a little bit off, you know, you don't need to calibrate everything. Just go into the setting, you know, dial in the amounts that it's off, and you're good to go within just a couple of seconds. Also, when you want to shoot horizontally, you don't need to, you know, rebuild everything. Just put out the camera, slide it in again, balance it quickly, and you're good to go. So when it comes to the versatility, the ease of use, huge thumbs up from my side. So we have now been using the Scorp Mini 3 Pro for about a week now, and let's talk about my conclusion after intensively testing it with a big camera, but also with my iPhone. And to be honest, if you are in the market for a 3-axis gimbal and you want one that is very versatile, it has all of the AI tracking features built in, and you know, in case you are shooting a lot of low mode shots, like I've showed you that setup before, it is a very, very solid gimbal. It had no issues at all, even though I think this is still a pre-production module. Also, that you can program everything. Also, when it comes to the settings, that you don't need an external app. So for me personally, it's a very, very solid gimbal. I like using that, and I will link it down below. I will also try to get a coupon code for you so that you can get some, you know, percentages off. And yeah, huge thanks also to Feiyu for sending this gimbal over and for, you know, making this trip possible here. In case you want to check it out yourself, I will link it down below. It will be the first link below that like button. In case you have not subscribed, make sure you do so. And if you are in the market for a gimbal, check this one out. I'll catch you in the next one.